today we're going to talk about how to move from friction to flow. So join me and I'm going to give you the skinny on how to shift yourself anytime, any place, anywhere, especially at work, from what doesn't feel too great to what feels kick-ass and you're loving it. Let's get started. It's all about the power and freedom line, knowing when you're in a state of power and freedom and when you're not. And when you are in a state of power and freedom, you're in the flow zone. You're moving, shaking, you can see clearly, you can think clearly, you're connected to the work that you're doing. You feel and experience yourself, and so do others, as a real contributor. That's flow. Friction, on the other hand, is agitation, annoia, worry, concern, fear, nervous energy, making mistakes, beating yourself up, not getting along with other people. That's friction. And it doesn't feel good. In your body, you might have like knots in your stomach or like a frog in your throat or a pain in your neck. You know how people always say those things? Well, that's a body state, and the body state is usually an indicator of something that's going on with your mood or your attitude. And friction to flow is all about how to recognize it and how to shift it. So let's just talk about some statistics. 55% of Americans are reporting that they have more stress than they've ever experienced before in their lifetime. That's over half of Americans. And the average number globally is 35%. So if you're watching this, if you're tuning in from the USA, we have 20% more stress than the rest of the world. I think we want to look at that. Now, maybe you can say, well, we're much more progressive, but that's not always true. And I think we should look at why that's the case. But today we're just going to look at that is the case. 40 to 70% of Americans say that change sets them into a state of friction. Change. Well, let's look around. We've got AI. We've got a major new administration in the US. We've got global friction and war almost everywhere. We're still kind of coming out of the mindset of a pandemic. We're living in mass change. It's 2025, right? 2025. In 1925, look at what changed between 1925 and 1999. We are at the mid stages of massive evolution. So people need to learn how to navigate change, how to empower themselves. We all do. We all have to get better at navigating change, leading change, and flowing with change. We need to do this at home. We need to do this for our kids. We need to do this for our grandkids. We need to do this for our parents. We need to do this for our families. We need to do this at work. We need to do this in every area of life. And here's the other thing, folks. No one's coming. No one on no white horse is coming. You know, when I first learned that, when I was that straight commission, I shared in the first episode of Responsibility that I was a straight commission recruiter for 25 years. I learned that no one was coming. If it was going to be, it was up to me. There was no white horse. There was no prince. I'm still looking for the prince, but no white horse. And if it's to be, it's up to us. So we got to learn to navigate change. And 40 to 70% of people say their stress comes from change. So we got a conundrum. Responsibility works for me. It's worked for every client who's ever chosen to take my coaching. It worked for all of those people. When I was in recruiting, I touched over 10,000 lives, partially because I worked with a lot of other recruiters and we did a lot of splits, but then I had my own firms. And so everybody else that was placing people. But in 25 years, 10,000 lives touched, and we taught them how to take their job search on from a response agile manner. So what is it to have responsibility? It's the ability to dance in the moment. It's the ability to take a licking and keep on ticking like the ever-ready bunny. It's the ability to see what's going on in the environment. So situational awareness. Disconnect a little bit from what's going on so you can be present and assess the situation. So you can be aware of what's going on in front of you, to the side of you, behind you, right? It's like being ready. It's being on the ready. That's responsibility. To master responsibility, there's 6 steps that I'm going to teach you now. And we're actually going to go into different episodes of deep, deep learning on this. So be sure to tune in. The first step of responsibility is just stop. Stop moving your body. Stop moving your mouth. Just stop. If you can, breathe and stop your thoughts, or at least slow the roll on the thoughts. Then connecting. Who am I at my highest level of effectiveness? At my highest level of contribution? Who am I when I'm at my best? Who am I when I have agency, autonomy, and authority over my life? So you're connecting to your highest self. Then you're understanding what's going on around me. So imagine a slow motion movie, just looking at what people are saying, how their body language is, what's happening with their face, the color of their face, their eyes, their mouth, really taking it in and understanding it. And then listening, tuning into your own intuition and listening to what your intuition has to say. There's the highest and best self. It's who am I as a declaration? Who, when I'm that, man, I love it. But then when I'm that, what's going on inside? And I got to listen. Got to listen for the answer. Once I understand what's going on in this situation, I got to listen to my inner self. Then pause. And it's like the double P, the pause and process. What is happening? What am I thinking about what's happening? What's going on with me and what's going on with me? And knowing yourself enough, is that a reflection or a projection? Or am I completely neutral about what I'm seeing and hearing? Because let's face it, y'all, we got to be neutral or we're going to make a biased choice, and maybe not the best choice. Because if our bias is that we're screwed, we're not going to make a great choice. If our bias is that we have bad luck, we're not going to make a bad choice. If our bias is that we don't make good decisions, we're not going to make a great choice. If our bias is, we're the champ and whatever we say yes to always works, we still might not make a good decision because we might not be willing to look at all the facts. So that's why you're slowing down, disconnecting from the situation and connecting to yourself, understanding what's going on inside, tuning into that intuition and listening, and then pausing and processing. And then and only then you take action. Only after you've done that 7 steps, 6 steps. So you might say, well, how long does all that take? You can do it in 90 seconds. 90 seconds if you practice and if you follow the recipe. So many of us, like me, I'm one of them. I go to a workshop or I tune into a podcast and I say, I like a little bit of what she's saying, and I like a little bit of what he's saying, and I like a little bit of what he's saying. So I don't do anything 100% until I realized that wasn't the right way to do it. And then I went all in. And as I went all in, life shifted. And I'm in flow more often than not. And I did that with the Flow Research Collective, which actually this process was developed out of my work with the Flow Research Collective and my work with something called the Autonomy Course. And then I just looked at my life and I'm like, oh, wow, I actually do that. So it's called sculpting. And when you sculpt, you actually carve the way you create the reality of your vision. Your vision comes from your right hemisphere. It's what you imagine. It's a metaphor. You envision it. But when you sculpt, it's like tangible. You sculpt your behavior moment by moment by moment by moment. So think of a sculpture that think of the David, and it's there and it's tangible. And this process helps you sculpt your own reality. So 99% of people say that at work, they are under stress. Now, I want you to understand what that means. If you are in management or leadership, and 99% of workers say stress affects their well-being, do you think you're getting the very best out of those people you can? Do you think they're at their highest and best when they're under stress? Do you think they're at their highest and best when they've got friction Now, you might say, well, when I'm under stress, I work harder. Here's the deal about friction. I want to just get this out there. A little bit of friction ignites a fire. Too much friction causes sand in the gears. And instead of a fire being lit and something great happening, you're like, ugh, and it makes you sick and it makes you ill. Stress, distress causes disease. So 99% of the people, we're going to get into, if you tune in and watch further, we're going to get into the 7 levels of effectiveness and what happens to your people and yourself when you're below the power and freedom line. From a financial perspective, people who operate too long below the power and freedom line wind up eroding their own salary. People who spend too much time below the power and freedom line wind up divorced. People who spend too much time below the power and freedom line wind up unemployed, below the power and freedom line, overweight, unhealthy, unhappy. So we got to get everybody up over the power and freedom line. A little bit of stress is good, not stress 20 to 30 to 40% of the time. Think about the 112 hours you're sleeping. I mean, you're awake in life. You're awake. If you wake up at 5 a.m. and go to bed at 10 p.m., you're awake 112 hours. You put your body in stress. If you're a good, healthy, abiding health citizen, you work out an hour a day, 7 days a week. That's only 7 hours out of 112. That's the amount of stress your body should be under. And that's perfect optimal health. So think about working in a stressful environment, like a workout every day for 8 hours a day. That's not going to be cool. So I want you to use that analogy and think about how much stress is good. It certainly isn't 20 to 30% of the time. And I'll show you why later. 31% of the people that are in the working world today say workplace interpersonal conflicts cause them stress. 31% of the people. Workplace conflicts. This is people who are arguing, infighting, siloing, hoarding information, passive aggressiveness, CCing a lot of people on an email that should have been just between 2 people, or not telling the person that you have an issue, but telling everybody else around the person. That's interpersonal conflicts. You know what I'm talking about. So this is a circumplex, and this is what we give to companies when we go in. Before we ever do any cultural alignment work, first we have to do sound and current data collection, which I recommend everybody who's on a kick for well-being or on a transformation or personal development, do some sound and current data, take some personality assessments, learn who you are, what works and doesn't work, so you know even why you're going to personal development. We have a podcast about that coming up with Margaret Paul. And that's about how to pick the right coach and how not to be taken advantage of people that are just selling you stuff that you don't even need, because that does happen. Anyway, let's talk about this. Sound and current data. This is a circumplex. We give this survey to organizations when we first start working with them, and they send it out to 10 to 20% of their workforce. And they say, tell us what it's actually like to work here. And they ask all sorts of questions. And there are 12 categories. The categories in this constructive style are things like high achievement, self-actualization, humanistic, encouraging, affiliative, where you're connecting to people. All these are highest and best self. And by the way, flow states. Actually, 99% of the companies that take this assessment, not just through me, globally, their employees say they're not in flow states. They're working, though, in below the line, below the power and freedom line, in either aggressive defensive, which is frustration, anger, agitation, annoyed, or they're in passive defensive, which is fear, worry, concern, hiding out, seeking approval, like begging for you to like me. Neither of these are healthy, folks. They put us down below the power and freedom line. 90% of the employees of 90% of the companies that take this assessment score below the power and freedom line. I'm going to say it again. This is so costly. This is so costly. It's costly to the work profit. It's costly to how much money you can earn long term. It's costly to your well-being. It's costly to your relationship with your families. It's costly to your relationship with your own mind, body, and spirit. We don't want to live below the line. This is what's going on in the United States of America right now, and it ain't working for anybody. Just look around. It's not working. There is no side that is right. Isn't it interesting? It's right in the middle. Don't we always know that that's really what works? Anyhow, let's look at this circumflex, how this shows up as friction, perfectionism. You have to do things my way. No, this is the only way to do it. You know, those kind of bosses, that causes passive defensiveness. When you have aggressive defensive, you have like predator, and then passive defensive becomes the prey. And the more the prey or the prey, the more aggressive defensive the aggressive has to get, because they think this down here isn't carrying their load. Neither side is right. What's right in the middle is right. So let's talk about some kind of personalities that cause this aggressive defensiveness. There's perfect Patty. Everything Patty does is absolutely this way, and everyone has to do it exactly the way Patty does it, and she's very rigid, and there's a lot of adverse effects to that. There's competitive Colin. And Colin has to win at everything he does. He has to be number one. He has to be the guy. It has to be his idea. Colin will move people out of the way if Colin looks bad at all. And then there's powerful Pam. And Pam will correct someone mid-sentence. She'll use her sharp elbows to push people out of the way. She'll always be the one with all the ideas. And she'll think she can do it all alone. And then there's Olive, the opposition. And no matter what somebody is giving for an idea, Olive will say, that's why it's not going to work. That's why it's not going to work. That's why it's not going to work. These people are heard. They are high performers, by the way, and they have a good positive impact. Perfectionists can do a great job in setting up structure, but then they need to let go and let someone else manage it, because no one's perfect, Patty. The competitive guy, Colin, that's great in sales. My God, we need competitive people. I was competitive. I needed to go out and earn a living. I was actually more achievement oriented than competitive, because I didn't like to compare, and I never even knew my standing until someone else told me my standing. But a real competitive Colin will, at a worst, on a bad day, take someone's lead and close it as their own. That's a bad day. Make other people look not as good as they look. And on a good day, they'll go bring your company a lot of money, and they'll make you great in sales. Powerful Pam, nothing can stop powerful Pam, man. She is a street fighter, and she's been a street fighter her whole life. What works is she doesn't have barriers. Pam knocks them down. What doesn't work is Pam knocks people down too, and leaves an array of dead bodies around, or at least dead souls. And then there's oppositional Olive. And Olive is, she's been there, done that, and she knows nothing will work. And so she sort of spreads a little bit of her negativity and her narrow-mindedness. And sometimes oppositional Olive will gossip. The good news about oppositional Olive is she might tell you when you're going to fly into the mountain, and you better have some quality assurance in place. So all of these strengths turn into weaknesses. What I want to say about this, if this interests you, I want you to tune in to our training video on the different kind of CEOs, because we act all these characters out. I mean, I don't act them out, but we have cartoons. AI is acting them out. It's very, very cool. And let's talk about the green zone, and then we'll end the episode for today. In the passive defensive styles, you have Allie, who's in need of approval. Everything Allie does is to make other people happy. If Allie's in management, Allie might not hold anybody accountable. She might not have any rules. Poor Allie and Patty, because they're going to be in conflict. Patty loves rules. Allie doesn't like rules. Allie wants to be liked by everybody. Allie often will tell two different people two different things, so they both like her, and she might not even remember that she did that. She's not doing it because she's a liar. She's doing it because all she can think of is how she needs to get other people's approval. She also switches easy. She's a switcher. It's not that she doesn't take a stand for anything, but she kind of thinks that everything might be right. And so she says what she needs to say, and sometimes doesn't even think about it. And here's where Allie works, Allie of approval, because she wants the team to get along. She wants people to be happy. She works hard to make other people happy. Conventional Callie. Here's the problem with conventional Callie. It doesn't like innovation, and we're living in great times of volatility, uncertainty, chaos, complexity, confusion, and ambiguity, and you can't be conventional right now. You got to be a little bit, take your hands off the control. Now, that being said, you need a little bit of convention. There's rules, there's governance, there's like policies that if you don't do this thing, we'll wind up in jail. Conventional Callie is really good for that. But any of these things, when we overuse them, we become people who cause friction at work. And I'm talking to you and I'm talking to me. I got a mirror right here. I'm talking to me. I was these people, all of them at different times and places. Darlene, the dependent. Darlene, and we have a Darlene that works for us. I'm not talking about Darlene. I just came up with the name. Darlene, the dependent, needs to be told what to do. She doesn't want to upset the perfectionist or the competitive or the power or the opposition. So just tell me what to do. If you just tell me what to do, I'll do it. The good news is great at execution, gets a lot of work done, doesn't give a lot of hard time, is a great person at churning out the work. But if you don't tell them what to do, they don't always get it done, which makes this red people go ballistic because why do I have to tell you everything? Now we have friction because I say, why do I have to tell you everything? And Darlene gets her feelings hurt and begins to cry, or at least go tell other people. And then they all gather around her because she's so nice. And that's dependency. And it's not so great all the time when overused. And then we have Armand, the avoider. Armand knows he needs to have a conversation with somebody, but just procrastinates on it and waits and waits and waits. And then something happens. And then Armand says, I'm going to talk to that person. And then Armand never talks to the person. So he avoids. If something bad is happening and that communication needs to go up the chain and it has to go to one of these people, competitive, perfection, power, oppositional, he says, no way do I want to get my head chewed off. So he doesn't do it. The good news about Armand is that he will wait on things and maybe they calm down, but sometimes he waits too long. So neither the aggressive defensive or the passive defensive puts you into a state of flow. It creates toxicity at work when these are on overload. It puts people into a state of friction. They don't talk well. They don't communicate well. They don't get stuff done. And here's the thing, you're losing, if this is your company, you're losing 40% of your profit because of this nonsense. If this is your career and you're working every day in this state, you got to either change jobs or tell those people that they're in a state of friction and it's not healthy and their healthcare costs are going to go up and the company's not going to innovate and they're going to lose money. Because the name of the game is we want to be in high constructive. We want to be in a state of flow where I am connected to my highest and best self. And I feel like I am winning the game that I'm playing. I'm winning, self-actualizing. Not only am I winning the game that I'm playing, I feel like I'm being a contribution. I feel like I'm fulfilling my highest and best self, my aim, my autonomy in life. Like, man, I'm on purpose. Humanistic, encouraging. We actually like the people we work with. We support them in dealing with all this volatility, uncertainty, chaos, complexity, confusion, and ambiguity. We train them, we get them coaches, and we allow them to thrive in the face of VUCA. And we know their name and their birthday and what they do for fun and what their kids do and when they've got crisis in their family and they need some extra support from us. Affiliative is we build cross-functional teams. We take people from different departments. We put them together in a cohort and give them challenges and they solve it. And that fills their achievement need, their self-actualization, and their humanistic. When you are in a state of flow, one action creates 4 results. When you're in a state of friction, 25 actions create 1 result.